Welcome back to the shop. What we're going to do today is we're going to build a version of a Bluetti or Jackery or the EcoFlow, but it's basically a portable power station. And this video is going to be split up into 3 different phases. And the first phase that we're going to do is just to build a 12-volt battery box. And as you can see, all the equipment that I have here, I'm going to be using the Milwaukee Packout system for containing the all the components that we're going to use to build this. Now we are using 200 amp hours of batteries, which should give us quite a bit of power. And the way I'm going to build it, it will be modular, so we can add more batteries if we want later. I enjoy using the Milwaukee Packout system. I like the way that you can add parts to it or subtract them, and just the way they connect and everything. It seems like a really good way to build a modular system. So let's get started. The idea that I have is that the bottom box here is going to house the 2 batteries, and it's going to have the system for charging those batteries. And for now, that's just going to be using 120 volts plugged into the wall. At a later point, we'll add the capability to use solar as well. Also in this box, we're going to have this system, so we can have a USB outlet and a 12-volt outlet that's switched also. That'll tell us how much power we have in our batteries, hopefully. The chargers that'll be inside the box will need a power source, so we're going to put this on the outside, so when you're not using it, you can cover it up, and it's moderately waterproof. There's also going to be these posts for a 12-volt outlet, and this will also enable us to run power lines to the inverter, which is going to sit in the box on top for the next video. We're going to have a switch on the back, so if it's like an emergency cutoff switch, if there's an issue or anything like that, we can shut this off and it'll kill the power out of the batteries instantly. And that's about it. So you can see I have the batteries inside here, approximately how they're going to be. They're lithium iron phosphate batteries, so that doesn't matter. They can be on their side like that, and there's 2 of them. You can see the other one underneath there, and we'll get those mounted in there like that. But I just want to make sure where we're going to put this, and I think we're going to put that right there, and I just wanted to make sure there's enough room at the back to fit that in. So we'll cut that out there. Sorry, Milwaukee Packout, but it's the most convenient spot for it. And also, just a side note, this voltage gauge here is always lit when the power's turned on, and that's a power draw. And I don't, with that light on all the time, I don't know how much power it draws, but it is some. So we're going to put a push button on that. So when we want to see the voltage, we'll be able to push the button, and we'll mount that little button down there. Otherwise, it'll just bypass that without the power draw to power that up. I'm going to take this green painter's tape and cover this up on the front so I can draw some lines on there for where we gotta cut our holes. Hate when that happens. We'll measure the width of the hole that I need, which seems to be 1.5, 5 5/8. You can find the center of anything, I guess. Something that's convenient. That's 50 centimeters. Just because that's easy. So that's the center there, 25. This needs to be 150 centimeters. Sometimes I use inches, sometimes I use centimeters. I remember I was in grade 1 and they were teaching us the metric system, and we were also using the old system. So it's nice to know both. Whatever was convenient. So we're at 150, 75 millimeters either side. All right, we'll try to use the oscillating tool for cutting it, and we'll see what happens. Well, that worked pretty good. Have a bolt on there like that. Perfect. We'll get this cleaned up a little bit. Have this little hole reamer, maybe it'll help cut the... Very good. Look at that. Beautiful. So now we'll just get the push button I explained earlier wired in for that. We have this push button here. And we'll need the hole for that. Maybe we'll put that button right there. Use a spade bit for that. That should be just about perfect. Easy. Perfect. I'll get some connectors and get this wired in. The screws that were provided with this are like for, well, they work on this, but I don't want any sharp things poking out into the inside here to poke my hands or to get involved with the wires or the batteries. So I'm using just a bolt, little bolt like that. I can put a nut on the back and it's not going to cut my hand or anything like that when I put it inside. And now I just got to get this wired up on the back here. I think we got it wired up now. We're getting 5 volts over here. That's a 12 volt power point, just like a cigarette lighter style. And we push that. That'll tell us the voltage of the battery. I think it's, we'll check with the meter. 13.4. This is 13.5. That's pretty close. I don't imagine this is a high grade meter. So we'll just take it as an indication. Let's get a few things cleaned up here and we'll be ready to move on. All right, you can see we've spun it around. This is the back now. So we're going to put these lugs out here that will carry the power. It can either be used as a 12 volt, you can just hook lugs up to it, but the main purpose will be to go up to the next box that's going to have the inverter in it. So we'll get those put in there. That's a 3/8 drill bit there. And then down here, we want to put the cutoff switch like that. That should be good. So we'll need a hole in the back to get the wires through for this. And a couple holes for these here. We got the top ones laid out, just on a piece of tape there like we did on the front. And for these ones, we'll obviously go dead center. We're about 140, so 70. So that's 2.5 inches inside. So we'll go with a hole that's 2 inches square. I just want to double check which way the batteries are going to be oriented in there, so I know whether to put the black one on this side or that side. You can see that's how they're going to be oriented, like that. And that is my negative side, so the black will go over on this side, on the right. It appears we're going to need a hole to accommodate this, not this. And that is 5/8 again. But since I already drilled the hole out, I don't think I can use the spade bit in there now. It'll just fly around. This is 5/8. So our cutoff switch, it actually came with nice little stainless steel bolts that we'll use to mount that on there. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to get wired it up first, because that might be difficult to play around with in there. So we'll get it wired up loose and then we'll attach it to there. So that's how the batteries are going to sit in there. And they're going to run in parallel as opposed to series. And the reason is these are 12 volt batteries. We want to maintain a 12 volt system. If we put them in series, so if we took a wire to put it here, and then from here to here, and then from here off, we'd have 24 volts. But when we're going like this, it's just 12 volts. A nice heavy cable here to get those cables made up. It just so happens that these cables came with the inverter, and that'll just be a nice jump from go to there to there. So we'll just use these, may as well, since they're already made up. You wouldn't be doing this with lead acid batteries. All right, you can see the room that we have here now. So we could just go straight to there, but we need to include the cutoff, the shut-off switch down here. So we got to make a wire to go there and then to there. That'll be our first cable. We cleaned off the end there. Grip it. They're big enough. Perfect. That's going to go on. just like that. We'll get that mounted there like that. How we're going to keep these in place in here. Well, believe it or not, I did think of a plan. And all I'm going to do is just set these on top like that. And there's just enough pressure there from the roof that this holds everything solid in there. That's as far as we're going to go with the box today. The next step is to install this plug. Not quite sure where we're going to put it yet, but plug that in there. And then we have to put one of these inside, and that's the charger for the lithium phosphate iron battery. Lithium iron phosphate battery. And then other than that, we're good to go. We got a voltage here, 13.6. That's her. On the back we have our main cutoff switch here, and we also have our points where we're going to hook our cables to go up to the next box that's going on top that has our inverter in it. And that will be in another video. But we'll get back to shortly and install this. Alrighty, we're back here again. All we got to do is, to finish this part of the project, is to install this plug down here. And then inside the box, that will allow us to plug in this charger. And at this point, I'm not sure if we need one charger or two, because the batteries are hooked together now. So we'll just try one initially, and if it doesn't work, then we'll try two. So I've determined we need a 2-inch hole saw to put this in. And we want to make sure that we have room to fit the flange in. I'll put her about there. Clear on the inside there. That's going to go there like that. We'll get some bolts for this. All right, we got some bolts, and we just got to get this lined up. The bolts I got are just slightly bigger than this hole here, so we have to drill through that as well, and hopefully not into my hand. I'm just going to take that out and keep my hand out of there. The deer flies and a few mosquitoes are on the scene. Get a screwdriver for that. So these plugs go directly into the side of the battery. And I'll show you that in a second. And then we just plug it in. And these boxes have little fans in them as well. So I would suspect at some point in the future, I'm going to need to put some ventilation holes in here to allow some air to circulate in and out of the box so it doesn't overheat. But we'll just try it as we go and keep an eye on things. Make sure they don't catch on fire. So this is the plug. This plug here, that's the charger for the battery, the inlet. This other one's for a USB, and that turns on the USB, but we won't be using that feature at this point. So we'll get that hooked up. And hopefully that will work for us. And we'll plug this into that plug we just installed there. You can see it lit up green. So that must mean the battery is fully charged. But as we are a bit experimental, we'll check these things as we go along, because obviously it's not plugged in right now. Now I do have a nice extension cord available for this that we're going to keep inside the box. So when we need to plug that in, just plug that in like that, and then we can plug that into the wall. Now, as I said before, at some point we're going to hook up get a plug on here so we can plug it into solar panels. But for now, it's just going to be charged off of the 120 wall outlet. I think I'm going to tape that down on there just to make sure it doesn't move. We'll use some of this red tuck tape if I can find the end. I always like to fold my tape over like that. Obviously, I don't always fold the end over. Otherwise, I would have been able to find it earlier. Make your life easy. So here's a schematic for the 12-volt portion of the power station. Over here, we have our two lithium iron phosphate 4 batteries right here. I'm not sure if that is the right symbol for lithium iron phosphate battery, but we're going to go with that. This is our main cutoff switch. This is the module that's on the front of the box with the 5-volt USB outlet and the cigarette lighter outlet. Maybe I'm dating myself there, but that's what it is. And then this is the switch that's on the front. These 2 points here are our 12 volts that come off the back, and those will go to the inverter. So right now, we have off our negative side from our 2 batteries in parallel. And then it comes to our outlet. Now we do have a line going up and joining here, which gives us our negative side on those parts that require the power. So on our positive side, we come up off the 2 batteries, and when we go to our main cutoff, and then off our main cutoff, we feed into that module on the front of the power station, and then we feed our 12 volts to the inverter, positive side. So it's not that complicated. This whole part right here is that self-contained unit. And this little job right here, that's defined right here, that's the push button that I installed to activate the meter. That's the meter right there. So it's pretty straightforward. It may look complicated, and unfortunately because of the lighting I can't show you really what goes on a whole lot inside the box, but that will give you a good idea of what's going on. So there we go. Phase 1 is done. We have the power outlet here. We have 12 volts here. We have 2 USB chargers here. We can check our voltage there, 13.5. And on the back, we have our 12 volt outlet here that are going to go to the box on top that's going to have the inverter on it. That's phase 2. So we'll do that in another video. Here's the shut off for the main shut off. So that completely disconnects the 12 volts from here, from the switches up front, and obviously the inverter that's going to be on top. There we go.